Welcome back, everybody. Today we'll be discussing the Jordan 1 UNC Toe once again. Specifically, we'll be discussing whether to sell or hold the Jordan 1 UNC Toe and why that is. To preface, if you guys enjoy these types of videos regarding the market, reselling, and even info on how to acquire these limited products, be sure you subscribe and enable post notifications. This way you're always 100% updated. Furthermore, for more urgent updates like shock drops that we saw for these, follow my Twitter, KeithAdam10. This way you're always in the loop 24/7. For early information before these shock drops occur, Endurance always has your back. Feel free to check out the link in the description below. For those who don't know, the Jordan 1 UNC Toe releases on July 22nd, tomorrow. However, there already was a quote-unquote shock drop for them. I say that because it technically wasn't. They loaded 15 minutes beforehand, which consisted of nearly 110,000 men's pairs being released, those of which are already in circulation now, which is why prices are already so low. This is important to keep in mind for what we're about to talk about later. Retail is $180 for men's sizes, those of which we'll be focusing on today, although grade school should react proportionally. Despite the fact that 110,000 pairs already dropped, lots more still has to. In fact, there were 250,000 men's pairs total on Sneakers US alone, and about 400,000 in total produced. That's insanely high, just 100,000 shy of the extremely demanded Jordan 1 lost and found. In order to determine if the Jordan 1 UNC Toe will be a fruitful hold, we will cover an estimated range of what the sneaker will settle at after the drop, and also when shipments come in, essentially the pairs going into circulation, whether they're expected to increase post-drop or even hypothetically decrease, along with how much specifically over specific periods of time, and finally, what type of margin we're looking at for these in terms of holding. Not the retail to resale initial margin, but rather just the hold margin over X period of time. Basically, if they go up, are they even going to be worth your time? Kicking it off, let's discuss the estimated range that these should be settling at. To begin with, stock for these is far above average for Jordan 1, as we already discussed. As for demand, it is also above average, considering UNC colorways tend to garner lots of demand in general, especially with this color blocking. This is reflected in the sale volume, but we've certainly seen better. We've seen an entire default StockX load filled with just one single hour's worth of sales. Not to mention, the pre-sale is so low, making it even less impressive. However, we can attribute this low pre-sale to all the shock drop pairs being in circulation. Not only that, but all the sellers panic selling because of their knowledge of the very high overall stock that is to be released. In the stock market, this would be referred to as pricing something in. That's why when bad news occurs, sometimes stocks actually go up, because things can be priced in too heavily. And I think that's what's happening with these. More on this later though. At the moment, the day before the drop, this leaves the current average at $213 for sizes 8 to 12. At this price, you already can hardly make brick profit, but I do believe we'll see a temporary rise in price, which should allow for some lunch money, that of which we're about to discuss. As usual, large sizes should perform the best, so I would advise focusing on size 10 and above, bigger being the better. We normally see a notable change post-US drop. This is when we normally experience what I like to refer to as the impulsivity effect. You guys should know what I'm referring to by now, as we discuss this very frequently, yet it almost always occurs to some degree. Regarding this impulsivity effect, if you haven't watched my seller hold videos before, sneaker drops specifically impact human impulsiveness significantly after an individual fails to acquire that desired product due to insufficient supply and too much demand. Therefore, on average, we normally see about a 5 to 10% increase of the pre-drop prices post-drop. When it comes to these, I think it is very probable that we do see a positive impulsivity effect, and likely towards the higher end of 10%. This is due to what I explained earlier about pairs potentially being oversold. Yes, there is a ton of stock, but this information is known by tons of these sellers already. Just like the stock market, things can get priced in, and so I actually do think, despite this massive stock, there's a chance that these see a mild 10% increase post-drop, allowing for more profit than currently if you sell at that period right after the drop. This would hypothetically leave prices at about $234 on average, meaning that some large sizes maybe could hit the high 240s, maybe even close to 250, with some smaller ones still being under 230 though. Now, let's discuss what prices will look like once shipments go out in the 1 to 2 week range. During this period, the vast majority of pairs will all be going into circulation. Despite the temporary increase, as usual, I would still expect the usual 10% decrease in value post-drop, as all the pairs going into circulation, this could potentially leave the price back at $211, bringing them right back down. But now that the average price ranges at those points in time are evident, let's discuss whether they're expected to increase from the post-shipment prices or even continue to decrease, as we've seen on some other Jordan 1s recently. In general, Jordan 1s have not been great holds recently. Obviously, macro is the main factor, but even relative to Jordan 4s, they seem to be worse. Nonetheless, UNC colorways in general do tend to do quite well long term. I think the biggest thing to consider here, though, is that not only is this colorway in high demand, but they're already starting out so low in value. It makes it pretty hard for these to continue dropping even further. With the price potentially as low as $211, from here, I'd really only expect these to increase gradually over time, regardless of the very high stock. Finally, regarding the hold margin on these, basically, are they going to be worth your time, even if they do go up? Short term, I really wouldn't expect much of a noticeable increase at all, mostly due to macroeconomical factors and the massive stock. Long term, I do think that this UNC colorway will eventually increase in value, and considering they are so low currently, it doesn't really take much to see a good ROI on them. Hypothetically, if these were to increase to $275 in 1 to 2 years, that would already be a 30% ROI, which I don't think is too absurd for that amount of time. Hence, I would rate these above average at 6.5 out of 10, mostly because of how low in value they are currently, allowing for a good ROI pretty easily when they do eventually increase. But I cannot rate them much higher, considering it may take a very long time for a pair with such high stock to even start moving. And these ratings don't even take macro into consideration, which obviously isn't good. So keep that in mind as well when you're making these decisions. Overall, it's a decent above average long-term hold, given how low they are now as a UNC Jordan 1, but nothing too great due to that high stock. Also, just a note in general, for anyone considering holding any item who does have low capital, you should never hold anything in general if you don't have sufficient capital to go for as many drops as possible at your full potential. If you need money to go for all drops, try to sell these as soon as possible during that impulsivity effect. Let me know what you guys are doing with your pairs down in the comments below. Since this is a discussion at the end of the day, I can't predict the future. That's just my personal analysis based on the data that I've acknowledged. We have a lot of brilliant minds watching right now, so I'd love to hear your notions as well. Also, be sure to check out Endurance with the link in the description below if you're looking for a profitable side hustle that goes far beyond just sneaker reselling too. Subscribe and enable post notifications, this way you stay 100% updated on all hyped releases, and follow my Twitter, KeithAdam10, to get any urgent notifications such as this shock drop. With that, have a fantastic rest of your day, and congrats if you already copped, or good luck if you have not yet.